manager of the Bancroft and District Chamber of Commerce. It's absolutely delightful to see as many folks out here tonight, and thank you so much for coming. It's starting, I could feel when people were shaking your hands, it's starting to get the weather of fall. I guess it's a lovely time of the year. We're all very excited about that. We've had a beautiful summer, and now we're going to go into a lovely autumn and fall and Thanksgiving and all of that great stuff. So we're going to get right into the evening tonight. I am going to be your moderator for the evening, so bear with me if we start on things and I ask you to do things and say things, and I'm working with these delightful counselors, candidates up top here. I do have a few folks that I'd like to acknowledge, and this program that we've put together from the Chamber is kind of a take-home for you. There are some questions that have come in to the candidates to me by email that folks were not able to be here this evening. So we've had the candidates answer them, and I've printed them. They're also going to be available on our website tomorrow. So also a couple of housekeeping things. We're live streaming the production tonight on Facebook, and it will be also available on our website for tomorrow as well. The Bancroft District Chamber website. And so if anyone is unable to be here tonight, they can certainly have a look at it. The Bancroft, the existing council that are here, I would just like to acknowledge them. We have Wayne Wiggins that's with us tonight, representing Ward 1. Wayne, thank you for joining us. Andrea Kaufeld is also from Ward 1. She's here. There she is. Hi, Andrea. And we've got Charles Mullet representing Ward 2, and I saw Charles come in, thank you. And I didn't see Barry and Tracy come in yet. Are you folks here? No, okay. All right, so the folks that we have with us here tonight on the stage, of course you know current Mayor Paul Jenkins. Thank you again, Paul. We have Mary Kavanaugh, who is also running for mayor, sitting to my left. We also have Bill Wellwood, who is running for Ward 2, Valerie Miles for Ward 2, and George Eastman, also for Ward 2. So as you know, we're just needing one seat to fill Ward 2, and these three lovely folks are going to be running for that. So we'll get the opportunity to hear a few words from everybody tonight. In the program, we have just a few, again, housekeeping things. As I said, Carly's going to be recording it. My assistant, Carly Irwin from the Chamber. Thank you very much, Carly, for all your help pulling this together. We've also got Alverna with us tonight, too, and Alverna is going to be our lovely timekeeper, and she's volunteering her evening with us tonight. So thank you again, Alverna. It's lovely to have you with us. The profile that we're doing, we're going to invite the candidates up to the microphone here very shortly, just to say a few opening remarks. Then the plan is I'm going to start off with Mayor Jenkins, and I have a question that I'm going to be asking each of the candidates, pretty much the same question for the mayor candidates, and then a different one for the Ward 2 candidates. And then we're going to go right to the floor, as you can see. Now, we do have a microphone in the middle of the room there. If you feel you'd like to use it, you're welcome to. All I ask when you are doing the questions is that you keep them, right to the point. We're on a very tight time schedule here tonight. Don't feel saddened or anything if I have to kind of encourage you to speed up in a very polite way, as I'm a polite gentleman. But remember, I'm the moderator, so I'm the one running the show here tonight. Okay. So let's get going, and I'd like to invite Mayor Jenkins up to the microphone.
Thank you, Greg. In case you forgot, my name is Paul. A little background on myself before we talk about the issues. I'm a relative newcomer to town. I've been here approximately 25 years now. That doesn't classify you as a long-term resident from what I can hear. We moved our young family here, as I said, 25 years ago to take advantage of a business opportunity. We felt the area had great potential, and it certainly has lived up to that. We came from the Golden Horseshoe, Toronto, Niagara area. Before that, I worked in several large corporations, primarily in the financial and planning areas. Prior to that, I had a couple of stints with the federal and provincial governments. And I also did my university education down in that same area where I majored in finance and planning aspects as well. So basically, I've had a long history of financial management, especially through owning my own company, and I think I'm very well versed in having to take the fortunes of the town forward in a very responsible nature. Elections are all about choices. 12 months ago, the council, the town of Bancroft made a choice. They selected me to be to mayor and to lead the town forward. They just didn't pick my name out of a hat. They did this for several reasons. They recognized that I had a vision that I wanted to see through, that I had the financial skills. I had already instituted a cap on debt with very tight restrictions. We did a 3% tax cut this year. They also recognized that I was quite willing and able to get everybody to work together. And they also realized that I was quite persistent on things that I had a passion for, one of which came to fruition last year after 4 years of lobbying, and that was the introduction of the broadband high-speed internet service that we're going to see in the near future. You'll hear me talk about development a lot. And the reason I talk about development is because it is absolutely critical to our future. We need to expand our tax base. As we all know, our taxes are too high, they're uncompetitive, and the same can be said with our wastewater rates. And until we expand our tax base and get more users, it's very tough to do much about it. I've worked a lot with developers. I have the ability to engage with them. I've had a couple of successes. I was very instrumental in the construction of the new family health team, which helped us attract quite a few new doctors to the area. And more recently, the liquor store development, which has a lot more to go, and I'm very hopeful that we're going to see a lot of jobs and assessment. And there's several more in progress at the present time. One of the big issues we face is housing. We have a severe shortage of rental and affordable housing. And I'm currently been working with our MP, Mr. Lacio, and a couple of the developers, and hopefully we're going to see some breakthroughs in that because it is a very large problem that we're having right now. But probably the biggest thing or the most important thing is that we need a collaborative attitude in the town. One person cannot do everything. It takes all of council and the community to band together if we're going to prosper moving forward. I have a couple proposals. I do plan on changing the makeup and the structure of our committees. I think we should have a lot more residents on the committees. I also want to change the time that we have meetings to late afternoon, early evening, because we would certainly like to see a lot more people come out. We recently undertook a restructuring of our staff side, and the primary focus of this is to push forward efficiencies and improve service to our residents. One of my big passions is healthcare. We have an older, lower income population versus the provincial average. I served as a director on the board of the Bancroft Family Health Team for the last 8 years. And I'm currently on a special group looking at the integration of the two health teams designed basically to improve healthcare services and to gain additional funding. So that is a priority. So I'd just like to say that I truly believe that we as a community can be successful if we work together, continue what we've got going. So I request your support to keep the momentum that I've been able to get to initiate in the last 12 months. So thank you kindly.
Just going to make a minor adjustment here. Okay, I'd like to invite Mary Kavanaugh to the microphone, please.
I was checking to make sure that the podium wasn't too high for me to see over. That was a difficulty that I sometimes have. Good evening. My name is Mary Kavanagh, and I am running for the position of mayor in Bancroft. I've served as councillor for the last 4 years. I was a happily retired teacher doing my thing, and then decided that politics and the town of Bancroft were a high priority for me. I was born and raised here. My great-grandparents came here on both sides of my family in the 1850s. My great-grandmother had a store on the main street of Bancroft in the 1870s. So when people are thinking that in fact Bancroft is stalling a little bit, it's been here for a long time, and it's apt to be here for a very much longer time with proper management. Some of my background: I am a registered nurse. I trained at St. Joe's in Peterborough. I worked in the operating room for years. At the hospital for sick children, I worked nights. Went to university during the day so that I could teach school. I did teach school for 27 years and enjoyed it immensely. Then I retired home. The reason that I am running for mayor is that I really do believe that you as voters should have a choice as voting for a mayor as opposed to having a mayor appointed. Paul is doing a good job. We get along and work very well together. But I really do believe that I have a vision that's slightly different and focused on other areas that he is focused on, but areas as well that he may not be. I really do believe that the sustainability of development is the foundation on which we are going to move ahead. And I believe that the Earth Science Centre is the way in which we will do that. It is a sustainable development that, in fact, with my educational background, I can see it unfolding as being the foundation stone on which we build other development in town. It's all well and good for us to wish to move ahead in areas of development, for example, commercial development and things like a new hotel. But if we don't have the people to come to town and to accommodate that hotel, it may not happen. So it's a bit of a catch-22 in that we have to be working on sustainable development. We do need seniors housing. And right now, as Paul pointed out, Mike Bossio with the federal government is promoting very strongly a program which would allow us to move ahead with seniors development. And I've been working with a few developers as well and speaking to them quite pointedly about the ways in which we can do that. Bancroft is a perfect place to have seniors housing because we have so many seniors that are wishing to move into Bancroft from the surrounding areas, because we do have the airport, the hospital, all the doctors, the dentists are here, shopping is here, our drugstores are here. So in fact, it is the perfect place for the seniors to be. But unfortunately right now, we have a shortage of housing for seniors. So that is a focus of my platform. The Earth Science Centre, I'll get back to it. Geologically, Bancroft is such a unique area relative to the tectonic plate structure that we have been looked at for many, many decades by universities in this province as a place where an Earth Science Centre would really, really be an appropriate project to undertake. With the education background that I have, I can see it sustaining itself by inviting classes. We're only 3 hours from Toronto, 3 hours from Ottawa, an hour from Peterborough, an hour from Belleville. With those school classes coming, the elementary and the high school classes coming, we can literally, apparently I'm out of time, and I was just getting going. 2 minutes? That's my 2 minutes.
A few seconds. 10 seconds.
10 seconds. 10 seconds.
I need the glasses.
So I may continue speaking? Oh, there you go. Now let me get back to this. Relative to the university Earth Science Centre and attracting university people. University of Toronto has been particularly interested in Bancroft for a very long period of time. We've had the Jamboree, which the Chamber of Commerce runs, and it's the 55th year that you've just completed. We are known not just provincially, not just nationally, but internationally. I was having dinner one evening in Richmond Hill with teacher friends of mine. Oh, I've got to stop. Anyway, there was a geologist from Europe, and he comes here every year. Thank you very much, and that's my platform, and I really hope that you will support me in my run for mayor. Thank you.
Bill, I'd like to invite.
that we can read that.
Well, you know, I thought I made it big enough,
I
but,
looked at the writing, I just looked at, and I thought, okay.
okay.
Oh,
The
I'm
the
gonna-
blue is 2 minutes,
Oh.
the yellow is 30 seconds, and you'll figure out the stop sign.
I did, I'm a quick study.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the yellow and it's like, no, that's 2 minutes. Anyway, Bill, please come to the microphone.
Hi, how you doing? Pretty solemn out there. Just wanted to tell you that my name is Bill Wellwood, and if you're under 45 years of age, you have a tendency to call me Mr. Wellwood. Just put an end to that right now. Like, stop. It's respectful, I agree, but it makes me feel damn old. Yeah. Yes, I know, I got great. It's okay. All right, and yes, I was a teacher in this community for 30 years. I was also a rugby coach, and I took kids overseas probably 5 times. I have spent my learning years at Trent University with a background in political science and economics, which you might wonder how all this fits together in terms of working on behalf of the municipal council or the constituents of Dungannon. The reality is that while you're operating rugby tours overseas, I had to deal with budgets that in excess of $500,000 sometimes, and nothing went wrong. So point out, I can handle the money. You also have to work with a number of personalities in getting projects going, and you have to deal with a lot of committee work. These are all things that I enjoy and things that I want to participate in. And I came to the decision to stand for a council seat representing Dungannon Ward because, as I don't know if you heard the radio ad, but I was bemoaning the fact that there isn't enough participation in our democratic system. So rather than sit around and complain about it, I did something about it. I stood up and put my name in. It's also true by looking at the faces here that participation is limited to people who seem to be over 40 years of age. I know some of you are just over 30, I understand. Where is everybody else? Because this is our future. And one of the platforms I have, I just got the paddle, one of the platforms I have is that I want to represent young adults. After 30 years of teaching, I wouldn't say that I know them, but I can at least try and recognize when they're in need of something and ask them what's wrong, what do they need. We don't have enough people actually going and asking for them. Too many people complaining about how millennials won't do anything. Did you ever ask them what they wanted? Maybe it's time we did that. And maybe it's time we actually consider some of our retirees also. Housing is a concern. Personally, 2 of my sons moved here, they had a job. It took them 2 months to find a place to live. 2 months. No, they couldn't afford to buy a $300,000 home that was available. This is a problem for a lot of people. People who want to downsize and people who are moving to the community. These are also concerns I have. And finally, I guess one of the really important aspects of why I'm running is I'm my own constituent. I live in Dungannon Ward. Yes, it can be labeled Ward 2, but Dungannon Ward has a long history and a cherished history, and it contributes well to the Bancroft municipality. And by being in Dungannon, the Dungannon constituents are my neighbors. Even if I'm down in Lamab and they're up in Vardy, we still have similar concerns. This is not to say I can't support Bancroft Municipal Council and take an oath that will say, yes, I will, to the best of my ability, represent council, its citizens, and its affairs. But I want to do it in all fairness to all demographic groups in all the constituencies. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bill. I'd like to invite Valerie Miles up to say a few words, please.
Thank you, Greg. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for hosting this for us. I really appreciate it.
My name is Valerie Miles. I've been a resident of the Bancroft area for 21 years now. I moved here from Hamilton in the late 80s. A friend of mine bought a piece of property on a lake, and we were fortunate to be able to come up and experience it. And along the way, a little piece of property across the lake came up for sale, and a few of us said, let's buy it. So no planning, no foresight, no money, just let's buy it. So we did. We made it work. And after 5 years of driving back and forth to the city, I thought, okay, I can't do this anymore. I love Bancroft. There is something that draws me here. There's something that makes me feel good here. There's something healthy and hearty here. The people are amazing, and I want to live here. So we owned a business. It was in the middle of renewal for a contract, and we just decided, let's go. If things go wrong, the road goes back. It will not be the end of the road. So we showed up here in 1997 and bought the old Simply Sweeter restaurant. Simply Sweet, then Simply Sweeter. We bought it and made it the Granite Grill. And for anybody who maybe went to the Granite Grill, you might recall I was the singing cook, or I was the hand you could see handing out the plates over the shelf from the kitchen. And that was the hardest work I've ever done in my life. And I thought, oh my goodness, can I do this forever? But I'm not leaving here. I love it here. I want to be here. Now I've been really introduced to the people. And I've established myself. It actually was a catalyst. And then one day somebody walked in and said, you know, I'm opening a brokerage and you would be an awesome realtor. I would like you to come and talk to me about getting into the real estate business. So off I went, and within 3 months I had my license, and I have never looked back. Having the opportunity to be out and about on the streets of Bancroft, working with the people of Bancroft, introducing new people to the area of Bancroft is beyond a pleasure for me. It is something that I truly enjoy, and it is a privilege to see what we have here in Ontario. When I started working in real estate, just something I've always done is volunteered and been involved in my community. I was approached to join the Bancroft Real Estate Association, which I did, and I volunteered with them over a variety of years. And then I was given the opportunity to go down into to represent Bancroft at our provincial level. Well, I really got the bug down there to volunteer with the province, and I was elected for 2 different terms, once as a regional director and once as a provincial director. The Ontario Real Estate Association is a 75,000 now, I think, actually, member-strong association, and I have sat representing those people. I have chaired their finance committee, which is a $37 million budget, which is very complex, very detailed, and I, at that time, had a responsibility with a committee to look after $37 million. I have sat at the table with the province. I've talked about policy. I've talked about what works for my profession, but what I've really done that I'm proud of is work on behalf of you as a homeowner. I was sitting there when they decided not to allow municipalities to charge land transfer tax. That's meant every time you bought a home, you would have to pay 2 land transfer tax, not only to the province, but also to the municipality. And it's because of the association that I worked with that you no longer have to do that. The reason there's a home ownership plan is because of realtors. So I have been there at the door, I've sat with the politicians, I understand how policy works, and I am prepared to work for the people of Bancroft in the same way. I have some great training when it comes to governance, sitting at a chair, being part of a group, building consensus. That training now has really prepared me. This is the next step for me, and I'd be honored to sit and represent the people of Bancroft on your council. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. All right, I'd like to invite George Eastman up to the microphone to say a few opening words.
First of all, I'd like to thank Greg and the chamber members for the opportunity to address you tonight. I would like to welcome friends and concerned citizens. Thank you for allowing me to share the stage tonight with the mayor candidates and my fellow opponents to participate this evening. Since moving here in 1982, transferred in from Pembroke with the Bank of Nova Scotia, I have served as assistant manager here in Bancroft and as well as manager in Wilberforce. Over that time, I have dealt with many situations. I have dealt with municipalities, so I know the other side of it as far as financial statements go. looking at it from that end. I have raised 3 boys. I have 6 grandkids, wonderful grandkids, very proud of them. And I think that they're the best and try to do everything for them. I've been involved in a lot of charities and community involvement since coming here. I've been over 30 years with Bancroft and District Minor Hockey. One of my granddaughters thought that I did with Marina and used to call it, "Where are you going, Grandma?" She called it the hockey house. So I've been involved with the Lions Club over a bunch of years ago, and various others, various committees and community affairs. Once I submitted my papers to run for office, I very much wanted to get to know the people who would be voting for me and meet as many constituents as possible. I'm proud to say I have visited almost all your homes or cottages in the whole of Dungannon riding. Not the number riding, but Dungannon riding. I really enjoyed meeting you. I have. If you're not at home, I left a brochure to contact me should you have any questions. And a lot of you did. From Clear Lake and Hollow Lake Road in the north, to Mallory Road in the south, from the Mab and Freeman Lane in the west, to James Lake to the east. I was there. I had met you in your laneways, or your backyards, stood on your doorsteps, or your steps, and even sat at your kitchen table having tea and cookies. The cookies were good, but not as good as Heather's. I got to know and meet many of you on your home turf, and hopefully you getting to know me as well. I listened to what were your concerns, and tried to address the issues as best I could, and how I thought I could help you once I was elected. But more importantly, I thought that I could bring some issues and some fresh face to the council, and with my experience, I thought that I could bring a positive face and effort to that. You are good people who deserve continued good representation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, George. All right, folks. As I mentioned earlier, in the program, there's some printed questions that we put in. Those were from community members that were not able to be here this evening and emailed me, so I put them in print because there were quite a few of them, as you could notice. I did keep out one question for each of the groups. So I've got one question that I'm going to ask Paul and Mary, and then the same another question I'm going to ask the 3 Dungannon candidates. So we're going to start, and Mary, I'm going to ask you to go first with this. And the question that was given to me is, will the town be out of debt at the end of 4 years, and how do you plan to accomplish this? Whichever you prefer.
Hello, it's on. I was looking for Ron Rosswich, sorry. The short and to the point answer is no, we will not be out of debt in 4 years. Our debt is rather like your mortgage in that we have a mortgage of about $6.3 million at the moment. And in 10 years, we will have paid that down with very pointed and very good planning to about 2.3 million through basically a consistent effort. We pay $1.12 million to the school boards every year. We pay $1.06 million to county to cover costs of social services, hospitals, and other services that we receive from them. We receive $4.8 million in property tax money, and with gas tax and other revenue, we had about $9.3 million as an annual budget in 2017. We had annual expenses of $9.2 million. With adjustments that left us with about $77 million in surplus, this money was immediately assigned to the capital budget because as a council, when we first came in 4 years ago, we decided that any surpluses would not be frittered away on things that council didn't have proper deliberation on. So we passed a resolution indicating that all surplus monies that we had at the end of our operational year would be put into a capital budget or a capital plan. Let me explain how we started out 4 years ago. In 2015, we had a debt of $6.671 million, which didn't include water, wastewater. December 2014, our first council meeting in January 2015, we received the harsh truth that there was money not accounted for in the debt payment plan that had to be accommodated. We had unfunded capital to the tune of $1.07 million. We had to raise the line of credit at the bank to $2.2 million until we found a solution. Increased rents at our works yard went from $27,000 a year to $130,000 a year in that January-February period, starting that year, that we had to accommodate as well. The 2015 wastewater debt at that point, which had accumulated over the 2 previous years to the tune of $500,000 each for those years, was $1.3 million. We had to accommodate all of that, and we did. We did a very good job of making sure that we went after as many grants as we possibly could, and that we accommodated our debt as well as we possibly could. One thing that people need to understand, and that I didn't understand when I ran for council, was that there are 2 budgets. There's an operating budget, and then there's the water wastewater budget. And that water wastewater budget basically is a user-based budget. And we have 875 people on the sewer plant, and we have a little more than 1,100 people who are using water in town. Now, all of the expenses of that wastewater were basically on the people that were paying the rates for those 2 services, and it was not sustainable. This council has gone to both the provincial government specifically, and they have done as much as they possibly can to get relief from those debts that we have. We had to reorganize our debt at the beginning of 2017, and that's when the water wastewater rates were increased by 100%. The wastewater was 100% and the water was 6%. We had no choice. And we then took gas tax money, and we took money from the taxpayer at that point to raise $300,000 in order to start paying the debt down. Am I stopping yet? So this council has worked very, very hard to accommodate the debt that we have and to try and make it feasible for people to move ahead. I should be finished.
I'm sorry, is it 4 minutes?
It's 4 minutes.
No. That's what I thought. It said 30 seconds, and I was counting in my head. Anyway, that's just a little bit of our history with the debt and what we have been doing. And know that our debt will not be paid. It runs through much later.
Thank you very much, Mary. Okay, Paul, I'm going to ask the same question of you. Will the town be out of debt at the end of 4 years? How do you plan to accomplish this?
Well, Mary, this is something we absolutely agree on. The answer is no.
The numbers are there?
Mary's numbers and I slightly different just because of the time horizon that we've taken them. Our current debt is at $5.9 million.
As of August.
No, as I said, different time period. Yours is at the end of the year. The 4-year horizon, we'll see it drop to $3.9 million. 4 years after that, in 2026, we go down to $2.6 million. Okay, the debt will be totally extinguished, assuming that no new debt is taken by the year 2040. Okay. One thing that everybody should be aware of is that this debt, as Mary pointed out, this debt includes the water wastewater debt, which is approximately 52% of our total debt. So if you're looking at other municipalities and comparing our debt, a lot of those municipalities do not have water wastewater systems. And theoretically, the water wastewater debt is supposed to be a user pay system. In our particular, so technically you could look at the debt in half. That's the bright side. The flip side of that is because of the issue with the water and wastewater expenses of operating the plant, the capital cost replacement going down the road, the horrendous rate increase that we had a couple of years ago. It was decided by this council that approximately $300,000 of general operating funds would be applied to the water, wastewater expenses. That is 7% of your taxation right there. So if we had not have done that, the water, wastewater rates would have been much more horrendous. So this is a situation where the people who got the increases weren't happy, and the people who are not on water and wastewater are not happy either. So I guess that probably means that we've done something right, because nobody's happy. Just one other little quick point here is that the total interest and principal payments in 2018 are $732,744. We will not see much relief on those because we have 10 individual items on our debt schedule. As they end, then we start to see a reduction, and our first big reduction will happen in 2022, when we will go down to $554,102 that we'll be paying on an annual basis. Approximately $200,000. So that is our first horizon in 4 years where we will see a dramatic reduction in our debt payments that will have a very positive effect on what we'll be able to do with that money as far as bringing that back into the operating stream, or further reduce taxes if we decide to do that. What's my time now?
You're at 1 minute.
1 minute, okay, so just very quickly, just the items that are on there. We have some old items that Detler Road, which has been redone since, is still being paid for, and that there's a fire truck. Faraday Heights water and sewer replacement, the purchase of the Block 68 property prior to the 2010 council, the actual sewer plant, we're still carrying over $3 million of debt, a loan for Bancroft Light and Power, the septage unit at the sewer plant, a small loan on the main office, and another loan that will be done in about 4 years on the recycling. So again, to go back, the answer is no, but we are on a disciplined schedule to reduce the debt on an ongoing basis. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Okay, next we're going to move over to the Dungannon candidates, and I'm going to ask Valerie to take the first question that I'm going to answer the first question. What skills do you bring to the council table to help with the town's debt issue? And what is your plan to delete the town debt?
I don't know how many of you have ever seen on TV that show, it's called Till Debt Do Us Part. And the lady who is she's the sort of the host of the show, her name is Oksana. And she goes to families who have credit cards that are run up so high and they are so out of control and they're spending way more than they bring in. And she sits down with them and she puts a bunch of glass jars on their counter, and their check comes in and she takes all the cash and puts the cash in the jars. She cuts every credit card. She cuts everything that they do that's extra. And she said, and now over the next few months, you can only spend your cash. That's all you can do. You can't do anything extra. Now, there might be things that'll fall apart. You might have to work this out. But maybe a little bit from this jar might have to go over into this jar. For me, I think our spending needs to be a straight common sense approach like that. We have so much come in, there can only be so much go out. And I do like Mary's comment about the fact that our debt is like a mortgage. It is. And we have a commodity here in this town. We have land, we have buildings, we have equipment. So having debt is not the end of the world. Anybody who owns a house, when you buy it, you have debt. You pay that debt off over 25 years. So I don't have a problem necessarily with the fact that we have debt, but I think we need to make sure that we service it correctly and that we don't spend anything extra that we don't need to. Now look, a hurricane comes along, the roof blows off. I get it. You might have to do something. There may be times when you'll have to do it. But let's make sure that every time we decide to add a little bit extra to that debt, it's done with common sense and it's an absolute necessity. I also think that we need to sell the lot in town. We paid a lot of money for it. We can't go backwards. I know it's an old story, but just like I work with people who buy homes, if something goes belly up, you gotta sell it. You gotta get rid of it. No matter what you get for it, just take it. We got a big chunk of land there right now, not collecting any taxes at all, and it's costing you to maintain it and look after it, doing nothing. Maybe it's not an easy sell, I understand that, but I think that's really something we should be talking about, and every penny goes towards the debt. I also want to see us be flexible, not rigid, understandably protective. So I am working every now and then with people out there, and there's a gentleman who has a building lot out on Highway 28. We sold it, phoned town, hey, can I put a building up? Nope, it's 4 acres, what do you mean you can't put a building up? It's got EP here, it's got so many setbacks here, it's got things back here. Well, the lot can be built on. There just needs to be some flexibility. I would like for us to know that as realtors and as property owners, if you own something here, let's build on it. It's out there earning about $350 a year in taxes. If when that buyer had called town and they would have said, let's get out there, let's look and see what you got. Let's see how we can work with this. Maybe there's a variance we can put together. In a year, we'd be collecting $2,000 off of that lot instead of $350. And I think there's a lot of those opportunities within town. So if we start to build more, we start to generate more income, we are going to be able to work towards that debt. It is not going away today, and as long as we treat it properly and we are respectful, I think that there is a future for Bancroft, and I'm not concerned about that the debt is too crazy. And it's here, what are you going to do? It's not going away.
Thank you, Valerie. All right, I would like to ask the same question of Bill. Bill, what skills do you bring to the council table to help with the town's debt issue? What is your plan to delete the town debt?
Hey, what is my plan to delete the town debt? I find that question misguided. It's misguided because I am not the town. I am not the council. I am one person. My plan is going to be a plan that comes with understanding, comprehension, and a review. I've spent several nights looking over the auditor's report that we received back in August. And I have several questions about that report, about the debt, and how the debt can be managed. But let me first say, you know what? Current council is doing a heck of a job with that debt. I looked at what has happened in the past year, the balancing of the budget for next year, the revenues versus expenditures, and all I can say is the debt's not going away. I'm not making it go away. You've already heard they're not making it go away. So what can I do? I can spend more time once I'm on council and see if I can, when I have the opportunity to ask questions, to raise questions. An interesting news item you all heard today was a $34,000 savings in one of the expenditures. Well, that's an excellent way to create a surplus. And when you have a surplus, then you can use the money in other areas. But the council's already passed, what would you call it, a guideline? A resolution that they will look at seriously where to put that money if they don't use it frivolously. I would like to be able to say, listen, you know what? Your taxes are going to get cut because the debt's going to disappear and it's going to be fantastic. And with that, the unicorns will come across your front yard and we'll all play together. Not going to happen, people. Not in my time at council. And well, unless you get reelected for 3 more terms, I don't know if it'll be in your turn at council.
That won't happen either.
Okay, so, look, debt is very complicated. We all budget, we all have personal income, we all have mortgages, and what we try to do personally is what the council is doing. And I'm supporting that right now. I'll say it straight up. They balance their budget, they look at their revenues and their expenditures, and part of that balanced budget is to take into account paying off the debt. And so part of the revenue goes towards that. And yes, if we have something disastrous happen, we're going to be stuck. But that's why we create a surplus and we keep it in reserve, is to take care of that. What can I do? I can spend more time with council members I can look at audits and budgets, and I can spend time analyzing them and asking questions. But until I get the opportunity to do that as a councilman, that's all I have to say about our debt and what I can do about it. And I wish it could be better news, but I do like the fact that our taxes were cut. Thanks for that. I appreciate that as a homeowner. That's a good one. No, I didn't give them the extra money to pay off the debt. I kept it for myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, I'd like to invite George to say a few words about this. George, just to read the question again, what skills do you bring to the council table to help with the town's debt issue? What is your plan to delete the town debt?
Sounds like a lot of doom and gloom, but I don't know. Town debt, high property taxes, and better road conditions are certainly many of the items on your minds no matter what corner of the township I visited. Obviously, it affects us all. There is no one or even an easy solution to reduce the town debt. The present council have worked very hard to tackle that problem. They are part-time people expected to do a full-time problem-solving basis. I think the first step is we need to get a handle on where we are right now and let people know in a concise manner of where we stand. We have good town staff who can show us the numbers, and in my experience, they all work hard for all of you. Once elected, of course, I represent again. I will become a team member of the new council, though. I want to use my financial background and experiences to assist the council members in making sound judgments. Questions have to be raised and answered. We all have to be accountable. We have some hard choices to make. I am definitely not in favor of raising taxes, but getting additional taxation and reducing operating costs are obviously a few of the ways to reduce our town debt. We need a greater tax base. We've heard that at this table. More people working in new businesses and living in our area. Council needs to be more aggressive in support of these plans. Time does not allow me to touch in detail all my plans moving forward, but some of the things I'd like to see. We need a more aggressive and cooperative plan with the county and provincial governments to bring residents and businesses to our area. Yes, we need lower income housing, but not just for lower working families, but for seniors as well. Some seniors, and many are here now, aren't able to afford or due to disabilities, simply cannot live in existing houses. They have all lived here all their lives, paid taxes most of their lives, and should not have to move to another part of the county to live in a residential retirement home. We need a well thought out plan to bring more medical staff to our area. Shed the light. Many of us do not presently have a doctor. We have good people in the process of bringing more doctors to our area, but as a town council, do we not have an obligation to get involved with assistance? As I told many of you, I do not intend to reinvent the wheel when elected, but over the next 4 years, I promise to grease that wheel to get things done. Present council has looked at many ways to reduce our debt. I can only help pursue them to do the right thing and steer them to make sound financial judgments when spending your tax dollars, our tax dollars. I can only promise you that I will do my best to represent you to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Is that a sign of some sort? All of a sudden the lights just appear. Was that you, Pastor John, or did something just come on? Maybe it's a sign, a good sign for us, folks. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do now for the next 50 minutes is we're going to open up to the floor for questions. We do have a microphone that is live, and I will invite you to come up and queue, if you may. We do request that if you do have a number of questions, that you limit your time at the microphone at one question, and then let someone else come up and go back out and stand in line if you have another question. We'd like you to obviously keep your questions to the point. We would like you to choose who you would like to ask the question to. If it's all of the candidates, that's fine. Otherwise, if it's just an individual one, please refer your question to that person. And I'd like to open the floor up. So who can we have come up to the microphone? I guess so. Yeah. Are you coming up? Oh yes. Okay. Here she comes. Okay, you can just absolutely you can stand in line.
Hello, I'm a little bit nervous because I'm new to this town. I moved in December to Bancroft, and if I can just make it a little short and more than a question, maybe there will be one question, the suggestion that I have. I've been here only 9 months, and I met quite a bit of hostility towards me as a newcomer on few levels. And because I talk to random people, I have an opportunity to talk to random people, I would say, if Bancroft has potential, and it has great potential, it's like a little gem in the rock, and I could say that it's almost like a little Niagara on the lake. If we can work together, and Valerie, your profession is so important to bring people, so we can show that Bancroft is absolutely beautiful and inviting, but people that live here and then they don't like newcomers, I felt that I was not welcome here. On many levels, I felt that really nobody wants to help me. So if the approach will be like that towards newcomers, we will not break the barrier, bringing more people to this town. And we need people to solve the problems. People is the answer to this little town, which is beautiful. So I would say that, Valerie, your profession will bring tons of people here if our image will be better and newcomers like me are welcome. So that's all I want to say. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit nervous about it because English is my second language, and I know that quite a few people really don't like newcomers here. They want the changes, but when it comes to newcomers, they just say, oh, too much. We don't want to be that progressive. And Paul is very progressive, so I hope that this progressive approach will be continued and newcomers like me will be welcome. So that the town will be grown instead of just going into regress.
Is your question addressed to Valerie?
And the question, I have a question actually to both candidates for the mayor. How you guys can change the existing, very old bylaw that governs the sizes of the homes in this county? Because the county has 800 square feet, and I have in my project pilot that I would like to develop homes that are around 650 square feet. So how long will it take you to change those regulations to speed up the process of developing smaller homes? Thank you.
Thank you. Candidates, Paul, would you like to start? Thank you.
Oh, I'm on. That's a great question. There's been a lot of discussion about that in several meetings I've gone to in the last few days. The tiny home revolution, as I would say. And there is minimum size through the County of Hastings official plan. I do believe that the official plan has been passed, but I do believe that we can go back for amendments as this progresses. Bancroft is well suited for having much higher density because while we have issues with water and sewer is actually a benefit because with that we can have higher density housing, and if we need the higher density to make it affordable, and it all goes. And as we get more of that, it will increase our tax base, which will then permit us to reduce our costs to individual taxpayers. So I am currently working with with a developer. We have a piece of land in mind, and so we will just be pursuing this and see what roadblocks that we run into, and just keep pushing till we, get what we feel that this town needs. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Mary, would you like to make a comment on that?
I agree with everything that Paul has said. One of the things that we have to follow is the official plan that has been adopted by the county. But something that this council did do at the very beginning of its tenure was to allow second units in houses, and that seemed to help quite a little bit. But the small houses are really the answer as long as they're a permanent structure. If they're on wheels, which most of them are, then it doesn't increase our tax base at all because they're not considered to be a taxable unit. And then we have to look at what's the most optimum size that people can put on properties without, depending on their own property property size. Like, it will impact on neighbors and if the property size is too small. So all of that has to be taken into consideration. But it's the upcoming trend, and it's the thing that I think is going to be very beneficial in our town, simply because there are people who are wishing to move. They may well have relatives in town that have a lot size that's large enough to accommodate a small house. And if they're elderly, they're like the granny flats that they've had in some of the cities for quite a few years. So I really do believe it's something that the council will consider and look at very positively.
Thank you, Mary. And the next question, please.
Okay. All right, so I have used this forum because after talking to Val today at the office, I really was, interjected with lots of questions about the community. I've been in Bancroft and the surrounding areas for about 5 or 6 years, and it's been pronounced of all of the different issues, whether it's healthcare, whether it's housing. And as I've navigated through the real estate or for the business sector, it's become prevalent that the socioeconomic factor of the region is dependent on an injection of cash. I know as a renter in the area, there's not the availability of the housing. I know to generate taxes, there needs to be property. I've seen the limits from a real estate standpoint, that there's tons of real estate areas that aren't bylawed to build upon the vacant land. So I've seen a Bancroft, in specific, who needs money, who needs the influx of cash, yet there's so many parameters governing that. I see the desperate need for housing, that we could possibly be taking advantage of the grants that are available, because I know that it's been brought to the County of Hastings that there's a shortage of homes. There's people lying out on the streets. I know as a single mom, the resources aren't available here. I know that it's difficult to find, a high earning job in this sector of the world. So having said that, I want to know, you can name all the problems. Everyone seems to be available to name all of the problems. What is your plan to inject cash back into the community and in retrospect, reduce the taxes to attract young families to build here, to live here, to grow here? I think those are the questions, because money, whether or not we all want to, money affects all of it. I'm 30. I'm not going to be able to invest here and live here and grow a family here. There's not enough resources. There's not enough money. I have young children. So tell me what you're going to do to re-inject cash flow back into the area, because it's dependent on everything.
Thank you. And who would you like to address that to first?
Everyone.
Okay, Mary, can you start with that then, please? Let's start with the...
How am I going to inject cash flow as mayor of Bancroft? I think that it's a multifaceted question, and I think that we've touched on, both Paul and I have touched on that a little bit tonight, in that the movement ahead, we do know that we're in an economically depressed area relative to the earning power of people and the way in which people are able to accommodate the expenses in the area, because it's not an easy solution, but development seems to be one of the ways. It's really the only way. We have sustainable forest industry that employs people. We have our commercial downtown, which employs people, and we have a hospital, we have our schools.
But you don't have enough housing.
We don't have enough housing, and the difficulty with
And the
that...
housing you do have is too expensive for the people who own
But the thing is, the municipality doesn't own housing. All we can do is make it as easy as possible for
But
the
your only opportunity to reach out to provincial or federal government for the ability, housing is a mandatory requirement for living.
Yes, it is.
It is.
But the thing is that the municipality is not in the business of owning and renting units.
No, but you're responsible for housing the people who live in your community.
We're responsible for putting forward as many opportunities as we can for developers.
Everyone needs a house. It's not an internet, it's not a cell phone requirement. Everybody needs somewhere to live. I just want to know what you guys are doing to make sure everyone has somewhere to sleep at night.
What I'm trying to explain to you, I can answer that in a different way, I think. In the budget that we have $1 million that goes to county to accommodate social services in this area. So we are paying into program at the county level which supplies housing for people. We
In
have,
this area, there's
Yes,
shelter then.
in this area, we,
No.
well, I'm not discussing shelter, but what I am saying is that we do have low rental housing and low income housing in this area that the town of Bancroft, the taxpayers of the town of Bancroft do contribute directly to.
And you're aware that that capacity does not fulfill the need of the area.
Yes, we are well aware of that, very much
So I'm
aware
just
of it.
wondering what you guys are doing to ensure that whether at a provincial or federal scale, that funding is being injected to make sure that the people of your community have somewhere to live.
We're working as pointedly as we can with the federal and the provincial governments to obtain as many cooperative ventures with developers, and right now the federal government has money available. And we're encouraging, I know Mayor Jenkins and myself have both been out stomping and talking to developers in hopes that they will accommodate that grant, to go after the grant. But there are many restrictions at their level, but we're working as hard as we can, and we're bringing our concerns to the provincial government and to the federal government.
Okay.
Okay?
Next, we'll move over to Valerie. Sorry, Paul, I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Greg. I think that it is a very difficult thing to just plop houses up and have them available for people because they cost money to build. So I think we have lots of builders in the neighborhood that we need to find a way to work with them, find incentives for them to say, come into the core of Bancroft. And I think Paul mentioned earlier, maybe he didn't, but I was at a council meeting in August, and the new plan is for the town has been released. And that back street along Cleek Street, there are certain areas within town. There are areas that we know could do very, very well with development that would allow for 14, 16 unit buildings. And we have lots of great local builders. We should be maybe going to them and saying, look, we would like you, in tandem to us, build up some housing that helps for a variety of families, seniors that need somewhere to go, low income, renters, a mix of all of that. I attended the Roundtable Poverty meeting today, and something was said to me that I thought was very, very interesting. And one of the things that we can do together as a community is be there for each other when it comes to housing. So if you build a new building, it has a mix of community in there. It has some low income. It has maybe a couple of condos that are sold. Maybe it has some rental families. And those people become a community for each other. And we need 15 of those, 20 of those, but we do have to find someone to build them. And we have to be able to work with the builders that are in the neighborhood to come and do it, because the big guys like Mattamy, the big builders, they're not coming here. We don't have enough infrastructure to bring them here. The tiny home piece is a slam dunk for me. I think it is such a trend, and I think it is a small footprint on our environment. And one of the things that we have that people find our area attractive about is clean air and clean water. So let's leave a small footprint. Make sure that happens. If you come to town with an application and you want to build a tiny house, yes, we have laws we have to live by. Yes, we have a plan we have to live by. But again, to me, that's that flexibility piece. The other thing is, in the city, they started talking about alleys, alley living, alley housing. So the province actually, at some point, if I understand correctly, and please I may be wrong, but the province said, needs to go municipality by municipality, but you could build a granny flat in your backyard. Might need to be for your aging parent, might need to be for a health situation with somebody in your family. It might be that if you're separated, you're going to live in the backyard and you can stay with your family together, but you can have 2 houses on your lot. To date, we can't do that around here. So I think we need to open up that opportunity for additional housing in my backyard, that I could support my mom when she's ready to transition. Not ready for the manor, but doesn't want to take care of a big house anymore. And maybe if we have enough of those, that also might help if I lived here and I had a sister or a family member who was low income. Let me put something in my backyard that can help her. Let me help my family by opening up the opportunity to put something smaller in my backyard. And it is going to be a tiny house. It's not going to be 800 square feet. It's going to be 600, 650 square feet, maybe a little bit bigger if she has a child or something. But I believe we have so much space up here. We have so much space that I think we can work together to build these units, to bring building to the table, and support each other when it comes to housing.
Thank you, Valerie. Well, next we're going to move to Paul, and then we're going to move to George, and then Bill.
Okay, it's an interesting question because it's actually a two-part question, because there's housing and there's affordable housing, and they definitely both take different approaches. So I'm going to deal with the affordable housing. Affordable housing is not attractive to developers because they cannot make a profit out of it. As everybody's pointed out, housing is the responsibility of the private sector. It is up to the town or the municipality to provide the correct environment for that to happen. So, as I mentioned earlier, with respect to affordable housing, the federal government has a program out right now. There is a meeting coming up in Madoc on November 20th where Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation will be giving a presentation on how we can access those funds. I had a chat with a developer today after the Poverty Roundtable, and we're going to try to get together because right now the federal government is looking for development partners to put up affordable housing, and they're having a hard time getting anybody to take it. We have, on plan of subdivision, which I found hard to believe, but staff informed me of this, we have currently 300 vacant single-family home lots. Well, that's not affordable housing. As Val mentioned, we had a rezoning application recently on Cleek Street, which we did approve, to change a home from commercial to residential. And that is an area, as Val said there as well, that I believe is prime for an affordable housing area. I have spoken with the owner of that land, and depending what I can do with Mr. Vassil from the federal government and the developer I spoke to today, hopefully we can get something going, but we have to start somewhere. So, thank you.
Thank you, Paul. George?
Again, it's sort of a two-pronged question in my mind too, and an answer that deserves a two-pronged answer. We definitely need the housing. There's no doubt about that, and I'm sorry I'm not maybe up to date on some of that, and I promise that I certainly get on board with that. But okay, we can create the housing, but we also need to create places for people to work. I know the town in their latest initiative has proposed to have a, correct me if I'm wrong, I may have the wrong wording here, but it's like a community development officer. And I'm hoping their job will be the type of person that is good at writing for grants, knows how to go in the back door to talk to ministries, knows how to talk to one-on-one, and maybe easier than say the council members will, like to Daryl and Mike, knows how to propose a whole line of questions and answers to the ministries involved. When I was listening to her talk, and I was thinking, like, it's got to be just not one thing. It's got to be an influx of things, like economics, housing, everything. And like it's a social issue that we have to deal with, and it's just not one single thing. And again, I admit I'm not in the real estate or not up to that part of it, but you know, my background is the financing of it, or the financial part of it. Put it on paper, and I'll be able to work the figures out. Anyway, it's just, I see it as an overall problem, yes, but we have to look at it as everything combined. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Bill?
First of all, I want to respond to a comment earlier. I'm really sorry, Ms. Brucheski, that you've received that kind of welcome in our town. It's a heartfelt story. It's not always. Secondly, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name to pose the question. Chantel. Chantel, you're exactly the kind of person that I want to see sit on a committee that I can act as an advocate for. That's what you were late coming in and was part of my earlier discussion. There are no easy answers, as you've heard, but that doesn't help you. There's no money influx. I can tell you that all day. You don't need to know that. You need to know how and when we can help you. And the only way that we can help you is we sit down and listen to you, take information from you, and then take a look at what can be done. Not just you, but I'm using you as an example to represent everybody in your tax bracket, in your demographic. And there's a terrible thing going around this community in many ways. When we have newcomers here and young people and low-income people, we categorize them. She's low income. She's a single parent. She's a newcomer. No. They're members of our community. They're citizens. Each and every one of us owes responsibility to do our best to look out for them. If we don't take on that responsibility, who will? Yes, you can parade numbers in front of people, and you can say to them, it's going to be all right. But if we don't actually show that we care and that we're willing to do things, we're not worth being on council, and we're not worth being citizens in this community. If we don't have social justice as part of our domain, then our humanity slips away. It doesn't matter what we have for numbers. It doesn't matter about statistics, and it doesn't matter about budgets. That young lady does not care about the council budget. That does not help her and her child. We must find a way to create affordable housing for people. And it's not something we can put off for 5 years. It needs to be done now. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I see we have a question from the floor. Please ask your question and who you would like to ask it of.
Thank you. Did I just hear the word social justice? Hi, I'm Diane, here with other people in red hats. We call ourselves the Nose for Justice and Equality. And we have a question and a quote. We'll start with the quote. It's from The Lord of the Rings author who likes hobbits and elves and presumably gnomes, therefore. And it is, if more of us valued song and food and cheer over hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world. Our question is for the two candidates for mayor. It's a question about your values, because we believe policy proceeds from values. Could you tell us about your cherished values that have led you to enter this campaign? What in your leadership will make Bancroft and Dungannon a merrier, kinder, more unified place? And I guess I would just add a question based on this last conversation we've had. Will you confront the biases against the newcomer and the people of low income as our mayor? Thanks. Sit back and listen.
Thank you. Paul, could I have you start, please?
I'll answer it out of order. With respect to our newcomer, I'm in constant contact with her, and we have been working together. I've tried to explain even my own situation when I first arrived here 25 years ago. It takes a little bit of time and perseverance, and you make friends, and you know it does get much better. So keep the faith, please. Yes, keep the faith. It will get better there. We're a very interesting area. You know, we have quite a split population between elderly, low income. As I've mentioned, we're below the provincial average on income. We're above on age. And I don't believe that there's a person at this table that does not have empathy for those that are less fortunate. And I believe as we move forward that within the policies that we develop and within the budgets that we develop, that we have to be cognizant of all of our population. Because depending on the statistics that you hear them bantered around, we have a sizable portion of our population. Yes, we have a terrible situation with our water and wastewater. The community is already contributing, as I mentioned before, $300,000 towards that to help defer that cost. It's not enough. I don't disagree with that. We need to really, I wish there was a magic bullet on that one. I've sat at, various meetings lately, and you can't not be empathetic to the situation. As Mary pointed out, we send a sizable portion of money to the county for social services. It sort of becomes invisible to us when it's administered through the county. So, perhaps we need to have a little bit more direct involvement on how that money does get administered. But everybody as taxpayers right now is contributing to social services, through the county. So, we do need to get a bit more involved. But as I said, I don't believe there's a person sitting at this table that does not have empathy for that. And it needs to be a long-term sustainable plan. We don't have the money just to give out, but we need to develop our community in a way that will present opportunities, income, and better living conditions for everybody. So, thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And Mary?
I agree with everything that Paul has said. Our community has one of the highest volunteer rates that you could ever imagine. The people here are dedicated to each other and to helping each other as much as they possibly can. And council is very cognizant of that. We do as much as we possibly can as far as providing the services that we can provide. It's very difficult for us as a staff, our town staff, to provide social services. They just don't have the expertise. That's why county looks after that for us. And as Paul says, when we're one step removed from that, it does make us perhaps not as cognizant as we should be. But I'm very sorry that anyone has had an unwelcome time coming to Bancroft, because it is a very welcoming community. You just look around and look at the people sitting here that contribute just amazingly to all of the areas of care. My nursing background, I can look out and see Heather and Bev and Elizabeth, and their whole life is dedicated to providing a service which will, they have a business which provides money to support a service which helps the people at hospice. Like, our community is phenomenal, and I don't think we pat ourselves on the back enough. I don't think we, as a community, we have very strong faith communities here. We have very strong Judeo-Christian values, and even if people do not belong to a Judeo-Christian background, they have very strong values of support for one another in the community. So I really do believe that the more questions you ask of us, the more you make us aware of your needs, then the more cognizant and the more sympathetic and empathetic we will be to the needs of the community. And we need you to ask us those questions, so thank you for the question.
Thank you, Mary. We have another question from the floor.
So this is following up on how resources are distributed throughout the whole of Hastings County, and how much of our resources goes to the county and how much comes back. So the question is primarily to everyone, but especially the two mayoralty candidates. How will you advocate with the county to ensure, example, social services and other resources are equitably distributed to the communities north of Highway 7?
Thank you. Mary, would you like to start on that, please?
We have county staff which are working very closely with people of needs and people who are vulnerable in our community. And I think that we trust that county will in fact do that job diligently, and we have evidence in the people that are in those positions that is being done as well as it possibly can be. Am I answering your question?
Not really.
Well, could you repeat it?
Because I think one of the things that we're looking at is an equity. A lot of positions and who gets hired and where they're done, all those decisions are made south of the
Well, we do have people who live in our community who work for Hastings County, and we have many of those. I have a niece who works for, I actually have two nieces who work for county. We have people
I'm
sitting.
talking more about the equity, you know, making sure
I-
that we get an equitable amount of resources north of south. And how are you going to advocate for that?
Well, we have Carol Russell sitting in the audience, and she, with me, is part of the North Hastings Economic Development Committee, and that is one of the focuses that we have stressed in the last 4 years that I've been on council, but certainly in the last 2 years, at looking at the way in which there is equitable distribution of every aspect of the way in which what you perceive to be south of 7 dealing with north of 7 and the resources that we all contribute, that they're equitably divided. And there is a very active pursuit of that. And I think that there is a success in that may well be better exemplified just in the last year or two than it has been in the past. Because we are advocating very vocally on our own behalf. And I think that, just like you asking us questions and we become more cognizant, it's the same with people who are our Hastings County office is south of 7, obviously. But if we're asking the questions and we're asking it in an organized fashion, and in a fashion that respectfully asking what the contributions are and how the contributions are equitably divided, I think we are receiving a degree of response. I don't think it's where it should be quite yet, but I do believe that we are making headway. And that person sitting right there, Carol Russell, if you speak to her after, you might get a little bit of information on that. That's more specific than I can give you. Because we have been working very specifically on that at North Hastings Economic Development Committee.
Thank you, Mary. Paul?
I sit on county council, and I also chair the long-term care committee for the county of Hastings. There are 14 municipalities in Hastings County. As far as the north, Bancroft actually gets the largest share, and the reason we get the largest share is because we have the services here. We have the subsidized housing. The EMS is stationed out of here. We have the long-term care facility. Ontario Works is located in here. Bancroft is a hub. So the question within the north, the hub basically gets the money, but it's accessible to all of the northern municipalities. The question then comes: is the north in general, as your question stated, getting its fair share in relation to the south? Well, if you sit on Hastings County like I do, every one of those 14 municipalities will say they're not getting their fair share, whether they're in the north or the south or whatever. These projects, I know they're doing a housing strategy right now. These projects are very expensive, so they tend to basically rotate around, where one municipality will get a facility and then there's no more money left, and it may take years for it to revolve around again. I know they're doing a sort of an in-between or midterm care study right now. The hope is that a new facility will come to the town of Bancroft. That report will be released in 2019 by Hastings County. I must say, my opinion of the distribution of social services changed dramatically when I became mayor and sat on Hastings County Council. I see the dedication of their staff. It's tremendous. They run a very tight ship. They're very cognizant of all areas, but there is not enough money to go around, because not only do they get funding from us as municipalities, that says, well, that's 2 minutes, thank you. Can't read that part. They're reliant on the province as well. And there's been cutbacks everywhere, and we have an aging population. So as funding is being drawn down, demands are being drawn up, and every municipality is at the trough looking for money. So I do believe that the county is doing a good job. It's not enough for our area, but it's not enough for any area as well. So it's our job to lobby and to be heard. And as I say, I do that as sitting on county council, and I know the other mayors who sit on county council do the same. So I believe it comes down to making your case, convincing them that you need to be next in the queue, and you know, support of the whole community is needed to basically state that case, and we hear it all over. So, just in summary, it's not a perfect system, but it's not a bad system either. It just doesn't have enough money.
Thank you, Paul. Valerie, would you like to comment on
No. I sincerely and honestly don't have enough insight as to how those transfers work and as to how those funds come here. And so the only piece that's interesting to me is the lobby piece. When Paul said about the lobbying, you always have to know the right thing to say to the right person at the right time in order for you to be an effective lobbyist. And I only know that because through the real estate field, AREA is a lobby group, and they had things that never went right the first time, it never went right the second time, but the third time there was either a new chair or a new government or a new conversation, and sometimes it just has to be at the right place at the right time. And if lobbying is what we would need to improve that, then that's what you'd have to look forward to. But I quite frankly don't have enough information to respond to the direct question.
Thank you, Valerie. George, would you like to comment?
I would say the same thing as Valerie said. Obviously, I don't have enough information. I'm just happy to hear that the lobby is going on, that we are getting more than our fair share, so that we see it as anyway. So that way we're doing a good job.
Thank you, George. Bill, would you like to make a comment?
The machinations of what happens at county level is outside of my domain, so I'm not really sure. However, locally, I do know that we receive some services, and you might be interested in knowing. There was learning initiatives provided for school children who struggled in school. These initiatives were being paid for by the county for retired teachers like myself to go and spend time tutoring young people so they had an opportunity to be more successful in school. That money came from the county. It wasn't local. Another one was mediation services when it came to conflict resolution. There is a mediation service available through the county. People can apply for it and get people to go out. Now this mediation deals with conflict resolution. Like if you want to beat your neighbor senseless, it's that type of conflict resolution. It's not, I'm going to sue you if you don't give me back my lawnmower. And it's paid for by the county. So those are two examples I know of where we do get our fair share and we do get opportunities to make use of it. But how well is it advertised? How many people know about it? That's a different concern, is communication and transparency. I know people have said transparency is a buzzword. It really isn't. It's necessary. If we're going to cooperate, we need to know these things are available. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. All right, folks, we have time for one more question on the floor. Harold.
Thank you. My name is Harold Eastman. I'm an advocate of small housing, and it's been an interest of mine for a long time, so I want to thank Chantel for bringing up the issue, and I want to thank Bill for saying that it's not something that we solve over the next 5 years, that we need to start solving it right now. So I have what I think is a really straightforward question to ask each of the candidates that I hope will kind of suss out their sense of urgency on this issue. So my question is, would you, as a member of council, stand by the low-income people in this area who are underhoused or homeless by passing a resolution that defied the county plan and authorized the CBO to authorize and to approve buildings of, let's say, down to 500 square feet? And a simple yes or no is fine.
Thank you. Let's start with George.
I'm sorry, I can't answer yes or no. I don't know the issue well enough, but if once I'm elected to council, I intend to divulge into knowing what the issues are. But I'm going to be frank with you right now, as I've been frank with everybody that I've been around to see.
trying to decide how my fate is based on which way I answer. Because I think that is a very rigid, hard approach. So I would say that I don't want to just say yes, that we should lower everything. I believe we need to have flexibility at certain times. I believe we need to make sure we understand that if we all stand together and say rigidly, this is what has to happen, is that in the best interests of our entire town? I don't know what all those consequences might be. I think we just need to have some flexibility to be able to entertain the opportunity that for you, if 500 square feet is acceptable and it's safe and it's structural and it meets your other setbacks, that as council we need to be able to say yes to that. We need to be able to allow those opportunities to happen, because I don't think everybody wants it. And so I don't know that I would stand there and say, yes, let's strictly draw that line. But I definitely want to see flexibility that allows alternative housing. I don't know if it makes me a fence sitter and a weenie and some of these other, I sincerely am not sure how I feel about that. And it's because I don't really understand the consequences of what standing firmly in front of the county means to us. What happens if we say, this is what we want, and they say, okay, you're not getting this money anymore? What happens if those kinds of rigid decisions have consequences, and I might not be aware of that? So, but I definitely want us to see and have flexibility for a variety of lifestyles that allow someone to leave a smaller footprint.
Thank you, Valerie. Bill?
Stripping away everything that you said, with the exception of one statement, are you willing to revolt against the county? That's the center of what you're saying. Yes, and I mean that in terms of revolt comes after reform. If you're denied reform, and reform is what the people want, the next step is revolt. Does this mean that we're going to snub our nose at the county and say, haha, we're going to do this anyway? No. There is a movement amongst a lot of people in rural communities, and it's political anarchism. And this doesn't mean running around shooting people. It is a movement of communities taking responsibility into their own hands and almost ignoring centralized government. I don't know if we want to go that far, but I think what you're suggesting here is if the laws are unfair and it's a democracy by the people, people have a right to change the law. For reform, try that first. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Mary?
The short answer is no, I would not vote to put forward a resolution without huge consultation by staff. But I agree with what Val is saying. I think individuals who wish to have some difference of opinion with the act can in fact go forward and put forward a petition and be heard. It's going to cost money perhaps, but in fact there is an avenue that the individual could pursue, and it's on an individual basis. But no, as a member of council or as mayor, I would not vote in favor. There would have to be a substantial amount of input from staff before I would do that.
Thank you, Mary. And Paul?
I do believe there is a great need for what you're requesting. I think we answered that question quite a bit earlier on tonight. I'm going to echo what Bill said, and I had written this down before Bill said it. There's an order in which to do things. So we've identified that we want this, and by and far, the people from the county are reasonable people. They're operating under doctrine that's passed down from the province of Ontario. So I believe that if we can, and we're working on that right now, come to them with an example and a plan of how this can work, and we have water and sewer in Bancroft, so, you know, we're primed for the smaller lots, you know, and it doesn't work on wells and septics nearly as well as it does on that. And you sit down with them with the plan and find out what their objections are. I really can't see what they would be, and, you know, everybody wants it. So whether it's 500 or 700, you know, right now it's 800 as a minimum. Find out what their objections and overcome the objections. So, you know, I do personally believe that with a proper concept and plan, we can approach the county and engage in constructive discussion that will lead to exactly what you're looking for.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you, Harold. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that brings it to a close of our on-the-floor questions. We're going to move into allow the candidates to say their closing remarks. I'm going to invite each one of you up to the podium. I'm going to start with George, please. Oh, are you? If you'd like to sit, that's fine.
Thank you.
You're the lucky one. I've been staying at home.
We reached that by
Okay, then I'll just stay here then.
Friends, we've come here tonight, and we've had a very good open
Could I ask you to
discussion.
use your microphone, George, please?
Sorry.
Thank you.
We've come here tonight, and we've had a very good open discussion on some of the things that's obviously on your mind. We may not have answered all of them maybe to your satisfaction. That's why all of us have left our brochures out in front counter. And some of you have some information to take home. I'm sure I'm going to be the first to say this, but if any of you have any comments or anything that you wish to further state or ask of us, we're just a phone call or email away, or a lot of us will see each other on the streets. Again, when I'm going through meeting the people at the doorsteps and on their properties, they're a lot more open, I think, than maybe some of us here tonight. And we have some concerns out there, and I think it takes somebody that with a good background in not only the financial aspect of it, but somebody that has served on various committees before. So having said that, like, we want the best, obviously, person for the job, and I think that I am the best for that job, and I guess all I can promise each and every one of you is, as I've dedicated to everything I've done in the town, from all the committees, like minor hockey through everything, we can just all, I guess, just be thankful for what we have and then go from there. And thank you very much.
Thank you, George.
I want to tell you a little story. I was out, shortly after I bought my cottage, I was down with some friends down on Stony Lake. It was in the early 90s, and we'd gone out for the afternoon, and we were deciding we were going to stay on an island out on Stony Lake where all the herons nest, and so we were going to go out for the day and enjoy the water and just have fun. And while we were out there, a storm came upon us like you would not believe. The sky got black, there was lightning, it was pouring rain, and it was like, there was just nowhere to go. It just came upon us so quickly. But we giggled, the storm went by, and we decided, wow, we don't need to go back, let's just keep moving, because all of a sudden the sun was there. Another 15, 20 minutes goes by, and sure enough, this storm comes flying back at us. And it is just like pouring, and the lightning is like crazy. And I'm thinking, what am I doing here? Like, I have a beautiful cottage with a nice front covered deck. I could be sitting there watching the storm go by. Why am I here? And then I looked around on the boat, and it was the people. I was with about 8 friends, really dear friends, people who mattered to me, people who brought great things to my life. And every time I start to think about why I'm making a decision to put myself out there, to give of my time, to make good, helpful decisions for the community I live in, I remember that story, and I think the rain and the storm did not matter. It was the people who mattered. And I am here putting my name forward because I love the people who live here and I love this community. I will work hard for you. I really only want what is the best. And it is for the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. And Bill?
Well, I sat here and I listened to questions from the floor and I listened to candidates, and I kept thinking to myself that we're all up here arguing on behalf of our constituents, of all of you sitting out there and all of those who couldn't be present. And concerns were raised. There weren't a lot of answers. Sometimes you can solve the world in an hour. Sometimes you can't. I don't think we did tonight. But hopefully you got information. The most important thing, though, that I think you should know is voting for me as a candidate from Dungannon, you're voting for somebody who lives in Dungannon. It's important. And you know, calling us Ward 2, yes, we're Ward 2 politically, but we've had 130 years of history in Dungannon. And that history is what gives us identity. My identity is Dungannon. I work in Bancroft, I still do. And Dungannon's part of the municipality. So working together is important to me. But I am from Dungannon. I am your neighbor. I'm not being brought in from another municipality to represent you. I'm representing myself as well as you. And I need to represent those people who have been marginalized up to this point. And I'm not talking about the people of Dungannon. I'm talking about retirees and young people who cannot find housing, who cannot find time to look for housing, who scramble to make enough money just to have a decent life here. Sadly, we talk about our future. When's the last time we talked to them? Because 30 years from now, they're sitting where you are. They need to be listened to. We all need to be listened to. Thank you.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Greg for doing all that he's done to put together this candidates meeting tonight, and his staff for the wonderful job they've done keeping us on time. And I'd like to thank all of you for coming, and to Reverend John, who is the pastor here at the church. Is it Reverend John? Yes. And the congregation. This faith congregation is extraordinarily generous always with this facility, so we do extend our thanks to them. Speaking of Dungannon, my great-grandfather was the first reeve of Dungannon, and he was also the first warden of Hastings in north of Severn. His name was Darby Cavanaugh. I can only speak to my own vision, and my vision basically is that Bancroft Dungannon is my home, and I really am standing on a platform, and I've worked for the last 4 years on the idea of clean water for our town. I would really like to see the sewer line north, because I think with the sewer line extended north, it only goes as far as Tim Hortons at the moment, and with it extended north, we then in fact can have a more complementary development as it moves north. The Earth Science Center is another footprint of my platform. All areas of development need to be actively pursued and encouraged by council and staff. Bancroft policies and procedures need to reflect an open arms approach to potential development. The town already has no development fees, which is an attractive feature. A 1% increase in your tax means $48,000 in the coffers of the town. A 1% increase in tax is approximately $48 a year for the household. Reducing taxes, I don't believe, is a fiscally responsible approach. The town costs go up each year just as they do for the taxpayer. Examples, we have to pay wages, rents, utilities, fuel, as well as maintenance and repairs on roads, buildings, and vehicles. We are already pretty much cut to the bone. The town also has the equivalents of the taxpayer's mortgage and debt payment obligation. I would love to lie to you and say that I will lower taxes. What I would like to see is that we have 0 or 1%, that we aim for that every year. 0 if we can, through efficiencies, through making sure that everything that we're doing at our level has an efficiency built into it. I would love to see a 5-year plan in every department of the town. And in that plan, the staff will build in efficiencies and council will help them move ahead with that. And now I've lost my other page, but that's fine. I'll find it. Basically, what I would like to do is to offer myself as your mayor for the next 4 years and to allow you to move ahead as a town. I can speak to my experience on council this past 4 years. I was assigned to several committees, and one of the committees that's my great love, which almost everyone in the house knows, is the museum. Today we were able to announce, yesterday we were able to announce, that through the Trillium Grant Foundation we received another $73,000, $73,600, which brings the total grant structure from April of 2016 to today, 2017 to today, about $178,000 that we've brought in at the museum in grants. In doing so, we are going to be able to keep that facility open, not just the 2 months of the year, which it usually is, but for 12 months of the year. With the grant that we have now, we will be writing curriculum that speaks to the children and the school people of this area, so that in fact it will be the local reaction and local response to the curriculum. We are engaging young people in learning the history of their town. We are engaging. Anyway, I would really like to have you support me as I run for mayor. Thank you. Vote for Mary Callan.
Thank you, Mary.
Our taxes are 70%, our municipal tax rate is 70% higher than Hastings, Highlands, or Faraday. Hence lies the problem of why we act as a hub community. We have all the facilities, we have all the services, we have the expenses that have resulted in these extraordinary costs. But with our tax rates, we're encouraging everybody to reside in those other municipalities and coming to our municipality to use all the services that we're not compensated for. We have an assessment problem. Hastings Highlands assessment is close to $1 billion. The town of Bancroft is about $350 million, so roughly 3 times. The township of Faraday, which has a far lower overhead cost structure, has an assessment that is very close to ours. It's obvious. We do need to cut taxes to bring people in. We managed a 3% tax cut this year through some efficiencies. I think we can continue to do that. I'm very hopeful through this restructuring plan of our staff organization that we are going to find that. The other thing that we are doing extensively is we are lobbying the provincial government. We have spoken directly to ministers. I've met with 3 so far, showing them the unfairness of the situation that we face providing services for everybody. We're at the present time, we're trying to get our public works yard, which they charge us $140,000 or $50,000 a year on rent for, to give it to us for free. They cost us over $1.3 million with changing their rules when our sewer plant was built. So they've cost us a lot of money, and they have put us at a great disadvantage. We need to lobby those people. But that's not all we need to do. We need to basically take care of ourselves. We have 5 million vehicle trips that go through our town every year, and everybody's astounded. What was that, 2 minutes? Thank you. You do that. Two for that. We need to promote people to stop. We need to promote people to invest here. We need to promote people to create things here. We need to make our town attractive. There have been so many studies, there's been so many initiatives, there's been so many incentives for people to beautify their properties, to make us attractive. That's the first step. As I say to people, if you're going out to look for a home, would you buy the ugly home or the good-looking home? People are, when they look at moving here, they're looking at the town as a whole, as their home. So we need our downtown merchants, business owners and property owners, and there have been some, let's be clear, that have done a great job and have made their buildings look great while others sit beside them and are in tatters. So we need to enforce our property standards, bylaws. We need to encourage these people to use incentives. The town is offering incentives right now for people to beautify their properties, and I don't believe enough people are taking up on it. So while there's a job for council and government to do, there's also a responsibility of the people of the town of Bancroft to basically get together, identify what the issues are, and to do something about it. Just not wait for somebody else to come in and do it for us. Last thing I will say is I want to give a plug. You know, we've had the advocacy group here today. I talked about changing some of our committees. There's one committee which I firmly believe is one of our best and most important committees. I'd like to see more people come out to it. That is our Community Safety and Wellbeing Committee. We deal with a lot of the issues that you people have been speaking about. We don't get any audience for them. We're open to tabling everything on that, so I would like to give a nod out to Councillor Wiggins, who was on the ground floor of this, and Councillor Mullet, who has been running it. So it's a great committee. It does deal with a lot of the issues, and we would like some more input. So I do believe that I have already got enough things in place. I have the vision where we need to go. I have the connections, and I have the manner to deal with developers and the government. We need to continue what's in place right now. So I would like your continued support. I can't do it in 1 year. I need another 4 years to finish the job. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Well, folks, that concludes our evening tonight. I want to personally thank you all for joining us this evening. And Paul, Mary, Bill, Valerie, and George, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us tonight. A couple of things that I would like to acknowledge. I'd like to bring attention and gracious thank you to Pastor John Riley with the church here. He has graciously donated the space for us tonight on a complimentary basis. Thank you, Pastor John. And just a plug to help John out, this beautiful facility is available for rent on a regular basis for various number of functions. There's a beautiful space downstairs and so on. So it is a lovely facility. Jessica and your team, Chantal. Yes, thank you. They were providing, and they joined us this evening. We didn't have any childs to mind, but Jessica had graciously offered complimentary child minding for tonight, but they were able to join us because we didn't have any children join us, other than the delightful little one over there in the corner.
Yeah.
I'd also like to make a mention to David Zelstra with Bancroft this week. He ran the ad in the newspaper for me on a complimentary basis, so that was a really big help for that. My team, Carly, yes, thank you. I'd like to acknowledge Carly Irwin, who is my staff, my member services coordinator, and my personal assistant. She's taped this tonight, or how am I aging myself saying taping it, but I think you know what I mean. And it is live on Facebook, and it will be also on our website for tomorrow. Alverna Ross, our fearless timekeeper, thank you so much for donating your time. I appreciate that. And note to self, I'm making the paddles much larger next time. Sorry, folks. I thought it was an 80-pitch font. I thought it wouldn't be big enough, but I'd also like to acknowledge the media, both our radio station here with Matthew. Matthew's relatively new to the community, so let's give Matthew a welcome applause. He's with our radio station and doing a great job, and congratulations on that, Matthew. And of course, Christina, who we all know and love. Thank you again for spending the evening with us, folks. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. The candidates are going to mingle out in the reception area for a little bit. And thank you for coming, and safe travels home.